right, I see we are two past the top of the hour. Want to be respectful, of course, of everybody's time today and lots to talk about, really, and sort of explore together. As we talk about prompting AI for better results, just a quick note, we are recording today's session. However, the automatically generated link is not going to be available to us after the meeting. However, we will share the recording and the slides after our session is complete. Before we review our agenda and formally kick things off, just a brief bit regarding myself. My name is Edgar Watring. I'm a learning strategist from Planet Technologies. I'm part of the Evolve 365 team. I'm privileged to work with several customers throughout every stage of their Copilot learning journey, from concepts to user adoption and ongoing learning. And I'm here today to simplify our approach to Copilot, demystify really what it's all about, and empower us to unlock meaningful practices available to all of us as we work with Microsoft Copilot. I'm joined today as well by a great supporting cast of Planeteers that are going to be keeping an eye on our chat. So please feel free to ask those questions throughout our time today. What's on our agenda for today's session? Like so many learning journeys, it's smart to set the pace before we move forward. And we're going to start things off considering our work in the GCC experience of Microsoft 365 and some AI fundamentals. We'll consider what a prompt is and why prompting is a critical part of our AI success. We'll explore the elements of a good prompt and some considerations of what can happen when our prompts are incomplete or lacking meaningful context. We'll note different prompting approaches and test drive some of these prompts with Copilot in our Microsoft 365 GCC demo environment. And finally, we'll wrap things up with some best practices we should employ as we work with Microsoft Copilot. Our exploration of and work with Copilot today will all happen minding the Microsoft 365 Government Community Cloud experience. If you work for a U.S. government agency, federal, state, or local, or a contractor supporting government work but not handling defense-related data, chances are you're in GCC. Considering our Microsoft 365 work in a GCC-hosted tenant, this ensures that our data stays within U.S. borders and is managed by screened U.S. personnel. It meets higher compliance standards as well, such as FedRAMP High and CJIS, which are critical for government operations. Our key takeaway here is GCC offers stricter data residency and personnel requirements when compared to the enterprise experience with Microsoft 365. What does this mean for us? Well, those feature rollouts to GCC are going to be a bit slower than those we see in the commercial experience with Microsoft 365. This is by design, though, of course, to ensure that our data remains secure as we work with it. Minding safety. What do we want to touch on as it relates maybe to Copilot, minding this experience? Well, of course, there continues to be a lot of hype out there surrounding AI, and the generative tools coming onto the market are increasingly popular. They can allow us to do some pretty amazing things like summarize lengthy documents, create new and professional content for our teams and our customers. They can support us across almost every step of our existing workflows. They provide assistance, they provide insights, and help us with rephrasing and even creating new content. However, it's critical that we only ever use approved AI services. Because of how many of these generative AI tools function and they grow their knowledge, there's a potential, a real risk of unintentionally exposing personal or confidential data if we don't work with officially sanctioned tools. The great news is, though, that Copilot, when we're signed in with our work credentials, helps ensure data integrity, and it applies the same enterprise-grade data protections we're already used to working with in other Microsoft 365 applications. The bottom line here is that many AI tools online do not protect our company's data. But when we use Copilot with our work account, enterprise data protections apply immediately. This means our data stays inside our organization's tenant, and that data is not used to train the AI model. So I know my colleague Julie just placed a poll here in our chat. Really appreciate all the responses that we're seeing. But another question, and this one's focused specifically on our experiences with prompting in AI. As you can see on screen here, a little bit of sort of a range, if I can say it that way, sort of starting at 1 with a user that maybe feels they're not even really entirely sure what a prompt is, all the way up to 5, someone that says, I am a consummate professional, I'm a prompting Jedi, and then some sort of choices in between. If I could have, if you would, please respond in our chat here, and just the numeral is fine. Where do you maybe find yourself in your prompting expertise? Are you still trying to kind of wrap your head around exactly what a prompt is all about? Or do you consider yourself well acquainted with smart and effective prompting processes? I'm loving it. I'm already seeing the chat blow up here. Lots of responses. Okay, some 2s and 3s. Maybe we're familiar with what a prompt is, but we're relying on some of those prompt assistance capabilities. I'm seeing a 5. Paul, I'm seeing you. All right, yeah, some 3s and 4s. And some of us that may be new to the prompting process altogether. Really appreciate all of those responses. We'll sort of bear in mind some of these experiences that we've had and where we might find ourselves. I venture, though, by the end of our session today, though, we're all going to see those numbers rise just a bit. Let's sort of level set, though, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. What is a prompt? A prompt is simply a set of instructions given to AI to guide its response. It's like providing instructions to a helpful assistant. The clearer and more specific that prompt is, the better the AI can understand and then respond with useful information. AI models function and respond as advanced predictive text, aiming to generate the most likely continuation based on our input. Clear, detailed prompts yield better results. For example, a simple prompt of summarize this article versus a specific context-rich prompt is going to produce markedly different outputs. Why does prompting matter? Well, AI is not magic, and of course it cannot read our minds. If we give Copilot incomplete or vague prompts, it's going to do its best to fill in the blanks on its own. And as you might imagine, while this occasionally may work, it may help us achieve our goal or head in the correct direction, most of the time the output is not going to be quite what we would like it to be. Very simply, and perhaps obviously put, improved prompts mean better results. So how do we get there, though? Let's consider these core principles of effective prompting. Think of these as a what to do before we even begin putting that prompt together and then providing it to Copilot. Effective prompting starts with clarity. Where and when at all possible, of course, we should be specific. We should be detailed in the instructions that we're providing Copilot. We'll also want to include context. Providing context by sharing relevant background information will enable the AI to better understand our goals. When possible, we should also designate constraints. This enables us to define boundaries, and it sort of aims the AI in the correct direction to achieve those desired formats or outputs that we're seeking from Copilot. And finally, I think this is maybe one of the most important here, at least in my experience with Copilot, is that iteration is key. We'll want to refine our prompts or continue that conversation with Copilot based upon the results that it provides us. We'll want to use a think it through sort of approach as we're working with Copilot. And in some cases, we may even request that Copilot explain its reasoning to us step by step. In one of our demos, in fact, a little bit later, we'll have an opportunity to sort of see this in practice. We should be aware, though, if our prompts lack important details, meaningful context, or insightful direction, we increase the chance of encountering what we call hallucinations. AI models can produce these hallucinations, scenarios in which they generate fabricated or incorrect information, but present it to us as if it's factual. Unlike search engines, AI models do not retrieve verified data, but they use pattern matching to generate their responses. It's important to always critically evaluate AI outputs, as those outputs may sound convincing, but they could potentially be inaccurate or incomplete in all of their details. All right, this is a fun one here. Let's just kind of start off with a prompt. And in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to request that Copilot kind of introduce itself, so to speak. We're going to let it talk about itself just a little bit. And I think this is helpful for us if we're maybe new to Copilot or working with generative AI in general. And for this one, I'm once again going to be interested in some audience response here. So here is my question. And as I'm sort of jumping over here to our demo environment, I'm going to provide this prompt, but then I'm also going to give everybody here that's with us today kind of a clear picture of where we're headed here. What I'm interested in from you, though, is think of your favorite thing and put that one word in the chat. It could be an item. It could be a location. For those of us that maybe fancy ourselves philosophers, it could even be a concept. So please indicate your favorite thing in chat in the form of a single word. We're going to use one of these words actually to, once again, allow Copilot to sort of introduce and explain itself. I'm going to go ahead and paste this from off screen here. All right, Copilot, we want you to explain AI to us. Let's see. All right. I'm loving all of these. All right. Oh, I see burger. Immediately the dopamine is firing in my brain as I see that term. So I'm gonna go. We're gonna use burger in our example here. Time permitting, perhaps we can revisit another one of these to a hamburger. But we're gonna want to go a little bit further here though, because we're gonna want a bit of understanding how Copilot is going to get to where it's about to take us here. We want to make this analogy clear and easy to follow. We would like a short and factual explanation as well. And we want to know where's Copilot getting this information from as it's providing this response. This is all going to be a part of our prompt that we're providing Microsoft Copilot. I am exceedingly interested and a little hungry to sort of see this response here. Let's see what Copilot does for us. All right. I'm not going to read through all of this as much as I would love to. I'm salivating just thinking about it here. But Copilot kind of breaks it down, with the idea that a hamburger is sort of a structured food item, and there's several different layers here. It's sort of using this image of a hamburger and the structure of a hamburger to then sort of explain how AI is like a hamburger. The top and bottom buns are like the interface that we interact with. The patty is the most substantial part. The toppings provide flavor and nuance. All right, and as we've requested per our prompt here, we'd like that short, factual explanation here at the bottom. Kind of cuts to the quick a little bit, not that we couldn't read all of the details included prior, and then an idea of where it's getting that content from. Loving it. A couple other things I'd like to point out. Let's go ahead and start a new chat as well up here in the upper right. We can always revisit that delicious conversation a little bit later if we need to. I did also want to note, though, that as we're working with Microsoft Copilot, once we click into that prompt box there, our past prompts are going to be there waiting for us, along with some suggested prompts that are part of that Copilot experience as well. We can get another look at those suggested prompts down below Copilot here. And if we navigate over to this See More control, little down arrow or caret allows us to quickly browse through some of the other suggested prompts provided by Copilot. And while our focus is today on prompting one final prompt-related control that's a part of our Copilot experience, we can also visit the prompt gallery, enabling us to get a look at additional prompts or revisit any saved prompts that we might have as a part of our Copilot experience. All right, we're just kind of scratching the surface here as it relates to Copilot and our prompting experience, but let's dive a little deeper though. Let's talk a little bit about more about what a good prompt looks like, based upon what we're trying to sort of achieve here. As we're beginning that conversation with Microsoft Copilot, it doesn't know our style, it's unaware of our goals or our situation unless we inform it. And this is why we consider context a critical part of our prompting process and what we're calling context engineering. When we provide Copilot with clear context, it's like handing a coworker everything they need to accomplish a task or move a project forward, instead of just expecting this coworker to guess what our intended goals are. This avoids generic answers, and it helps the AI sound more like us, to respond in our voice. It fixes the AI should know what I mean problem. And of course, it doesn't until we inform it. Why is this important? Why does it work? It addresses AI's mind-reading limitations. AI cannot infer implicit expectations. Explicitly providing context ensures that the AI has all of the necessary data to produce a relevant and accurate output. This is a similar approach to human collaboration. If a colleague approaches us and they need specific information to complete a task, so does AI. This approach treats AI like a collaborative partner rather than just a magical black box, so to speak. This shapes AI's helpfulness as well. By providing clear instructions, we guide AI's inherent training to be helpful toward producing genuinely useful and tailored results rather than just generic or agreeable but inaccurate responses. So how do we bring this all together? While we can make requests and revisit and readjust our prompts in a flowing conversation, we touched on iteration a couple moments ago. As we also observed earlier, we're just trying to be effective and simply get things done. What does an efficient prompt look like? What sort of parts are going to be present in that prompt? Among them, let's start things off by including a persona, assigning Copilot a role relative to the prompt. This allows Copilot to gain an understanding regarding its perspective on the topic or the intended output. We should let Copilot know what we're intending to accomplish or what goal we're seeking. It's going to need to know what its task or tasks should be. We'll want to inform Copilot regarding the medium in which this content is going to be used and any details regarding the format it should take. This could be something like drafting an email or putting together a report or a newsletter. Understanding the format that this output should be in is going to, once again, just get us that much more closer to our intended goal. We'll want to be mindful of the audience for this content as well. Copilot is assisting us with, in most situations, relaying details, communicating or instructing an audience of sorts. Knowing the audience will guide Copilot to its best possible output. And finally, our messaging and content may not resonate with our audience as intended if we're not mindful of how we're saying what we're saying. We should inform Copilot regarding the tone of the output based upon the situation or context. Now, these elements combined in a single prompt provide Copilot with a detailed blueprint for optimal output. And where we discover opportunity to adjust or seek additional details, we can move forward with that conversation. Just sort of like another approach, mining the different elements that we should include in our prompt. I wouldn't say the previous example versus this one is better or worse, right or wrong. In fact, the elements really in this sort of prompting model are really the same. There are other frameworks, of course, but both of these are going to enable us to yield efficient and succinct outputs then. We'll want to be mindful of our goal. Simply put, what are we trying to get done? Context, as we noted, is also key as well. These are going to be details about the goal and the audience for which this content is intended. Source is also important as well. This is going to include things like reference content or specified content from which Copilot can then source an understanding of the topic and then the related details. And then that expectation. We need to inform Copilot what we'd like it to do for us. And this then could also include things like the format or the tone of its output. Minding that first example, as we sort of talked about the different elements of a prompt, we've got kind of a practical example here. It sort of harkens back to, I don't know if Mad Libs are like even still a thing. They were certainly in my youth, where we're basically sort of minding a single framework and then providing then all of the different details as a part of that complete prompting process. So the details could vary wildly, and while they may vary wildly, really the elements are going to remain fundamentally the same. We don't even necessarily have to align all of these in a specific order, as Copilot can be somewhat forgiving, but it does help us to stay on point and formulate an organized and complete prompting process. I'm actually going to drop this sort of framework here in our chat. And we'll actually be working with this model, if I can say it that way, in just a little bit when we hop back into our demo environment. So with the understanding of what should be included in our prompt, where do we begin? We, of course, are responsible to initiate that conversation with Copilot, and Copilot is eagerly awaiting our engagement. Some of these that we see here may be better suited as we initiate the conversation, and other prompting approaches, as represented here, may be more relevant once that conversation is already underway. There's no definitively right or wrong approach to take with Copilot, and depending upon the situation and the objective, we might find some of these better suited to achieve our intended outcome. As we're sort of highlighting here in the center again, there's no real right or wrong ways. And in fact, the more that we work with Copilot and we sort of get a better understanding of Copilot, and if I can say it this way, it gets a better understanding of us. We're going to find which of these approaches is more relevant, once again, based upon your situation, and it's just going to help drive us that much more effectively to our intended outcome. Let's explore, though, a few of these ideas in more detail, though, to get an idea of exactly why they're effective. The first we'll want to touch on is assigning a role. Assigning a role helps Copilot source critical background information from its massive knowledge base. When you tell someone, or you're building some body of information and you're approaching this situation as a communications expert, or maybe you're a teacher that's explaining something to an audience that's full of beginners, Copilot then is going to then focus on the style and knowledge of that role. This keeps our answers more accurate, clear, and relevant. This can be one of the most foundational techniques to use because it tells AI where to focus its vast knowledge. Why does this work? This activates relevant knowledge subsets. So each role, just as an example, a molecular biologist, triggers deep associations with knowledge on the internet, and it allows the AI to draw on specific relevant information within its vast data set. It also applies constrained thinking by adopting a role. The AI is forced to apply the principles, the mindset, the constraints associated with that role. This collision of different information sources, so to speak, fosters more creative and tailored outputs, and it enhances output specificity. So instead of a generic response, assigning a role ensures the AI's output is filtered through a particular lens, leading to a more nuanced and expert-like answer. As we've discovered, Copilot works by predicting the next most likely word, not by, in a literal sense, understanding our goal or, of course, reading our minds. Because of this, Copilot is very good at copying patterns like writing style or tone, and this is a great way to really highlight this prompting approach, the few-shot prompting. When we give Copilot clear examples of a style, a format, and a tone, or other criteria, those examples become its strongest guide. It uses them to then shape its response so it looks more like we're sort of intending it to look in terms of output. If we don't provide those examples or clear instructions, the AI is going to fall back on general patterns it learned during training. This is why the output can sound generic or sometimes miss the mark. The more context and examples we provide, the better those results are going to be. Instead of saying be friendly or be concise, we're designating to Copilot what our intended output is supposed to look like. You may also consider giving, in some situations, a bad example, so AI knows what to avoid. Do not format it in this way, sort of providing sort of a negative of sorts. This is going to help those results come out more consistent and be aligned more appropriately with our voice. Why does this prompting approach work? It leverages imitation. AI excels at pattern recognition. Providing good examples directly shows the AI precise style, tone, and formatting details. It overrides its sort of default intuition, if we can say it that way. It reduces ambiguity. Adjectives alone, where we simply tell Copilot to be concise, are subjective. Concrete examples provide unambiguous guidance for the AI. This ensures the output matches our specific or intended vision for that output. It can also guide bad behavior avoidance, including incorrect or bad examples, examples of what we're not intending to achieve, especially crafted by AI itself, are going to help Copilot to better understand what to avoid. And this is going to help us to that much more effectively then refine that output quality. Another example we noted earlier is this chain of thought prompting. Chain of thought is asking the AI to explain its steps before giving the final answer. Now, this is not to say that the AI is thinking like you and I think as humans, but we are requesting then that AI write out or provide its reasoning, so to speak, in words. Seeing those steps helps us understand how the answer was created, and it lets us catch potential mistakes earlier. It also improves the final response because the AI is then going to take a more careful step-by-step approach instead of just jumping to a quick guess. This can be particularly helpful if we're working with complicated or work that we might consider critical or high stakes. By explaining its reasoning first, the AI is forced to bake that reasoning into its final answer, which usually makes the output clearer, more accurate, and more reliable. Why is this important? Why is this effective? It leverages AI's predictive nature. Large language models generate responses by predicting the next word. When we ask for a thought process first, the AI integrates that reasoning into its subsequent word predictions as it then provides us that output or that actual answer. It improves output quality. This forces the AI to include all those considerations into the task as a part of its response. This is going to lead to more coherent, thoughtful, and accurate outputs. And it provides us an opportunity to debug, so to speak, the output that Copilot is providing us. It turns that mystical magic of AI output into a transparent process, allowing us to understand the AI's assumptions and evaluate its reasoning alongside with the answer. I don't know if we remember the days of math class and long division, maybe just as an example, and your teacher would always request that you show your work. It's kind of what we're asking the AI to do here. Obviously, we're initiating that conversation. We're providing those details. Copilot, of course, is providing that response, but we want to see all of the thought process, so to speak, that's going to occur as then Copilot provides that helpful output. Another approach that we could take is reverse prompting. Reverse prompting fixes one of AI's what could be biggest challenges. It doesn't naturally ask clarifying questions. The AI is designed to be helpful. So instead of stopping to sort of ask for what it could consider, if I can say it that way, information, it's just going to try to sort of fill in those gaps and then provide that output. When we tell the AI to ask questions of us before getting started, we sort of shift the dynamic. The AI then goes from acting like a tool to acting like a teammate. This can help prevent wrong numbers, missing details, or fabricated information. Think of AI as like an eager intern. Often they would just rather want to sort of guess what you're seeking to achieve rather than returning back to you to sort of bother you and ask for additional information. If the AI, in our example here of reverse prompting, didn't ask for those key details, we can kind of just assume that it sort of made some of that information up. Why does this work? It overcomes AI's eager intern tendency. AI is predisposed to simply say yes and avoid troubling us with additional questions. Giving it the permission to ask questions empowers it to seek necessary clarification, preventing it from making numbers up or inserting placeholder text. It fosters kind of a teammate type of dynamic with Copilot. This shifts the interaction from a command response model to a collaborative teammate, not technology paradigm, mirroring effective human management, where a manager encourages a junior employee to ask questions, to seek insights before then providing that content or that response. And it ensures data accuracy. By prompting the AI to request specific data points, we ensure that the output is based on accurate user-provided information, rather than what can be sometimes those AI-generated assumptions. With that, let's jump back to our demo environment, roll up our sleeves a little bit here, start a new conversation with Copilot, and let's sort of harken back to some of these prompting approaches that we just noted, see what Copilot can do for us. Let me switch back over to our demo. We've already started a new conversation here. Let's start with, just as an example here, we didn't note this one earlier, but let's start with this zero-shot prompt here. And what we mean by zero-shot is we're not really providing Copilot with any sort of examples. We're not even pointing it to any sort of a body of data or referring it to any sort of background information. And we're going to use this as an example then to sort of provide another example and revisit that few-shot prompt that we mentioned a few moments ago. So as a leader, we're requesting that Copilot draft an email regarding security awareness training. We need to emphasize the importance of this training as an annual requirement. Let's keep a professional tone and note the deadline for that training. Once again, Copilot, where it discovers potential logical gaps or blanks, is going to do its best to sort of fill in those blanks for us. And we have here kind of a generic response. It touches on all of the things that we indicated in our prompt, but with the idea of efficiency and not having to iterate and reiterate with Copilot and achieve our goal that much more effectively. Let's take this same prompt and change it a little bit. Let's revisit this prompt in the form of a few shot prompt. To my upper right-hand corner, let's start a new conversation with Copilot. We're going to take this same prompt. We're going to add some additional details. Same figurative scenario here regarding this security awareness training. We're going to note some other key details, though. First of all, here, we're going to want Copilot to assume that leader persona. We're going to cite some examples as well, and we're going to draw on these examples based upon a document that we've got hosted in our OneDrive. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is type the / on my keyboard. It allows me to have access to the content I've got in OneDrive here. I could have also just clicked this plus symbol here if I had this file saved on my local computer and I simply wanted to upload it as a part of my prompt. Where are you? There we go. Email formatting. And I'll tell you what, just for a bit more context for all of us here, let's actually, before we provide this prompt to Copilot, just get a quick look at that actual document. This is the document that we're referring Copilot to now as a part of our prompt, and we want Copilot to draw on the formatting and the tone that are all included within this document. It's a great document. It provides some helpful information. And again, we're going to sort of follow the cues as provided in this document to get that intended output from Copilot. With our prompt in place and with the inclusion now of this document, let's see what Copilot can do for us. Great to see the chat so active. Keep those questions coming in, folks. Really appreciate it. Much better. All right. And a distinctively different output here from Copilot, including the reference then to that Word document that we have already within our OneDrive here, and sort of drawing upon some of those formatting cues and that tone. Copilot then takes that original prompt that we provided and it really hones it. It really shapes it to a bit more of a meaningful output here. At this point now, I could continue to sort of iterate with Copilot if I like what I've got. Copilot's informing me that it can actually then export that content as a Word document. If I'd like to take this content and then work with it beyond the context of Copilot, I can also copy this above response then, paste that into an email, paste that into a Word document, paste that into some other sort of formal Office medium, and then continue to work with that content. Couple of these other prompts, let's give them a shot. I'm going to clear our previous conversation there just to sort of reset our context. Let's get a look at our chain of thought prompt. And once again, the chain of thought prompt is going to involve not only providing the scenario and what we're wanting to achieve from Copilot, and just a heads up, this is a little bit of a longer prompt, but we also want to see the reasoning that's going to take place. We want Copilot to sort of show its work, so to speak. So in our example here, we want Copilot to assume the persona of an operations planner. We want to create a set of options formatted as a comparison table. The intended audience is going to be managers here. We designate the tone that we want included. And a super important part of this prompt here is we want to list the steps it's going to follow to identify and then organize those options. We're informing Copilot regarding a goal, a key date that's a part of our prompt. And then we are also then requesting of Copilot, before you respond, outline the steps that you're going to use Copilot to evaluate these options and then arrive at that recommendation. Let's see what Copilot does for us. You'll notice as well, just to take a quick moment to sort of point this out, we've got kind of a longer prompt here. There's lots of different details, and then we're sort of making that chain of thought request of Copilot now as it's sort of considering what we're intending for it to do for us. So we'll note Copilot's it's putting in a bit more work maybe than it had in some of our previous prompts. If for some reason we just feel that the Copilot's just taken a little too long, we could always click this get a quick answer. I'm going to give it a few more moments though, because I really am curious to see what it can. Oh, wonderful. Just as I said it, there's that output. Copilot tells us below is a structured planning approach and that evaluation framework that we can share with the managers. And before we actually get to that output that's intended for this audience of the managers here, here's that chain of thought. Here's that the steps involved in the reasoning that Copilot is providing us here. We need to clarify that policy, understand the stakeholders, be aware of the current systems and the constraints regarding inventory, define success. How are we going to measure that? Segment that audience. I'll forego sort of reading through all of these additional details. Kind of its own sort of ranking or scorecard here based upon the evaluation of all of those options. Let's keep scrolling down. As requested, there's that comparison table. And then its recommendation here. I should point out as well, we will have a few minutes at the end of our session today as well. So if there's any of these prompts that we provided that we need to revisit, or there's, of course, additional questions related to anything that we're covering today regarding prompting, we can always go back and revisit those. Let me clear that conversation once again. And let's note that reverse prompting scenario, or that reverse prompting approach that we talked about a little bit earlier. So again, we're going to harken back to that previous example. But the idea here, though, is we want this to be kind of more of a two-way conversation with Microsoft Copilot. We're going to request that Copilot request details from us as a part of then ultimately building that final output we're intending to achieve. Let me drop that reverse prompting prompt in our Copilot chat window here. Again, things like an operations planner, create that set of options in the way of a comparison table. The intended audience, once again, are those department managers. Much of the same criteria that we included in that previous chain of thought prompt. But this last part is key. Copilot, we want you to ask us specific questions that you need to draft a clear document. Don't make any assumptions. While we're providing lots of details, chances are there's additional information or criteria that should be included as well. Let's see what Copilot does for us here with our reverse prompting prompt. Love seeing all of the interaction in chat. All right, and there is our output. Once again, Copilot's kind of indicating to us here regarding sort of the steps it's going to take. What I'm really hoping, though, and I'm guessing it may be at the bottom of our prompt here. Oh, Copilot may still be thinking here. As is always the case, it's making its best efforts regarding all of the criteria that we've provided. Still building that table. There we go, and there's our additional details. And then wonderful. Based upon that reverse prompt, we want Copilot to prompt us, so to speak. It's going to ask specific questions. We're requesting that it ask, sort of formulate, and then provide us those questions then to really complete that prompting picture to get that desired outcome. It's asking us then that we provide details regarding the policy and that attestation that we then want to provide these managers. Are there any exceptions, any exclusions to this audience to whom we're providing then this information? What platforms are going to be related? Is this related perhaps to something online, applications that end users work with? Are there any sort of privacy or policy related restrictions that are going to be a part of the situation? All kinds of additional criteria. Wow, Copilot really went above and beyond here actually to provide us with a lot of really detailed questions that are going to be a part of our successful, hopefully, output here that Copilot provides us. And this is wonderful. Copilot even then indicated like, all right, hey, once I've got that out response from you, Edgar, here's kind of the following steps that we're going to follow to ultimately get this content that we're wanting to create. I would love to read through these in a bit more detail, but for now, one other type of prompt here that I want to provide. This sort of revisits one of the points that we made earlier regarding the importance of including details as a part of our prompting process. We just sort of worked our ways through several different prompting approaches, and technically, this could be an approach that we may take. We're going to provide Copilot with just a very basic prompt, and we're going to say, Copilot, analyze this data. What data are we analyzing? Let's reference a relatively small spreadsheet that's got some financial details there. And we're not indicating the persona that Copilot should assume or really what our goal is going to be with this data. Who's going to work with the data? Is there a particular tone? What format should it be in? We're simply going to tell Copilot to analyze the data as contained in the spreadsheet. And let's see what it does for us. Because we've left some of those gaps there, Copilot's just going to kind of do its best to sort of assume what we're wanting to achieve. I'm going to be interested to see what analysis it does provide us here. And if it's not obvious, what we're going to actually do is then start a new conversation. We're going to make the same request of Copilot, but we're going to provide some additional supplemental information that is probably going to yield a much more effective output. All right. Copilot is we are kind of putting it through the paces today here. I can kind of see it starting to sweat a little bit. Uh, let's just click get a quick answer and see what Copilot does for us here. Perhaps its analysis will not be quite as thorough or detailed. And I will note while we didn't take a look at this spreadsheet earlier, it's a relatively small spreadsheet. None of the information in it is particularly detailed. Just a few basic ranges of data. All right, very good. And while we were actually very vague in our prompt to Copilot, it is providing some sort of noteworthy details here based upon the information it discovered. I think Copilot's continuing to think, though. All right, still musing on the information as contained in that spreadsheet. All right, there we go. Analyzing all of that information, the spreadsheet has information regarding dates and times and revenue. Sort of comparing all of those figures within that spreadsheet. It's provided us its response. Good information, in some cases, potentially insightful information. Now, because our prompt was so vague, though, I'm going to need to revisit in detail then that output that Copilot has provided me. And of course, Copilot doesn't know this, but chances are I'm mindful of a particular audience or really a goal with the analysis of this information. It would make a lot more sense for me to include all of that as a part of this prompt. So we are going to refer back to the spreadsheet once again, but let's provide a much stronger prompt here. We're going to request that, again, Copilot revisit this information as a financial officer. We need this analysis to be presented to senior leadership. And we're specifically looking for it in the form of an email. And we wanted to identify what it would consider strengths and areas of concerns as well. Let's once again refer to that spreadsheet. Let's send that prompt. Let's see what Copilot does for us. Julie, appreciate all of your assistance today. Spectacular work. Keeping an eye on the chat. And in the interest of time, let's request Copilot provide us that quick answer. Suffice to say, the larger the body of data and the more detailed, of course, your prompt, we may find that Copilot takes a bit longer. All right, outstanding. All right, so rather than simply provide its analysis, as we requested that this response be in the form of an email, clearly we've got kind of an email thing happening here. We've got our subject. We're addressing the senior leadership team. It's provided us with some helpful insights, strengths, and concerns, as we requested it do as well. And then sort of that closing salutation that we would expect to see as a part of an email based upon its responses here. Another great thing to note as well, and I would imagine we would probably see this as we revisited some of our other prompts as well. We've got these citation numbers. So if we want to get an idea, hey, Copilot, from where exactly are you drawing this information? Always with the understanding that we'll want to verify those outputs before we then repurpose or then place them in some sort of a production environment or some sort of a formal communication or setting. Always wise to revisit those. I could continue that conversation with Copilot. Whether I want to provide an additional prompt myself, maybe just sort of continue to shape that output, or I could always work with those suggested prompts as well. There are so many more things that we could talk about as it relates to our work with Copilot, efficient prompts, all of the things that should be included. But we are nearing the top of the hour, and so definitely wanted to pause here. And first of all, thank everybody, of course, for being a part of our webcast today, but also open things up to any questions. I see the chat has been quite active here, but we may find that our questions would be better provided over voice chat. And Julie, you know, I see you've been quite diligent at keeping an eye on chat there, but if there's anything that we feel it would behoove us to share via voice, great opportunity to do so. Really appreciate everyone's engagement today. One other final bit of information I'll include as well, and Julie may have noted this earlier, but a couple helpful links here if we've got any further questions after our time today regarding any of the things we talked about, Copilot, you're sort of considering your department or your organization and wanting to just kind of figure out how are we going to sort of go beyond that concept and really adopt a meaningful AI program with Copilot in our organization. Email is there, info@go-planet.com. And if you want to learn more about Evolve 365, who wouldn't? Evolve 365 is great. The address then to learn more about Evolve 365 as well. Donnie, I hope I get a good burger too. I'm starving at this point now. Oh, that's all it took for me. I love AI, but I love burgers too. What can I say? Anything final we want to visit as a part of our prompting experiences with Microsoft Copilot today? All right. All right. See, y'all got to come back. I'm seeing all these burger comments now. Please, I can only hope that you join us for another webcast. Again, thank you everybody for being a part of our webcast today. My name is Edgar. I'm with Planet Technologies. Hope you learned something today. If you have any again questions, please reach out, and hope to run into you in a future learning session. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.